What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. Welcome to our second episode of Jets Therapy. We're coming hot off of the Denver Broncos game. Very interesting situation, but ultimately we came out with the W, which is great. Puts us at 2-3, bottom tier of the playoff race, but still with an opportunity at the moment to go and capture a wild card spot. And the question came to me whether this is an emotional win against the Broncos with all of the, Nathaniel Hackett, Sean Payton drama that was going on, or if this was just a legitimate win, seeing Zach Wilson go out there and I won't say thrive once again, but definitely put up an effective performance that put us in a position to get this key victory for the New York Jets. And I think it's worth talking about because when you've taken a look at history, going back to Rex Ryan, when we've had emotional games where, I want to say when something is on the line, outside of the wins or losses, when it's been a legitimate beef, you think Jets, Patriots, you think Rex Ryan facing some of his former teams, some of the teams that have knocked him off in the playoffs. Anytime we've had a huge emotional win for the New York Jets franchise, we see a fall off, right? The very next game, we come out extremely flat. We look unprepared. Our most athletic players look like, they've been jogging in sand all day. And so if that was the case here, it's legitimate enough to say that, versus the Eagles, one of the best cream of the cream in the NFL. This could be a very dangerous game, right, for the New York Jets. A lot of people won't talk about the emotional and mental side of the sport, but it happens, right? I think about the way the Dolphins dropped 70, and I can't remember who that was on. Maybe it was on the Broncos. Can't remember for sure, but you think about like a team coming in and hanging 70 on you, and then you have to go back out there and play like nothing is wrong once again. I couldn't fathom that, right? I've seen nail biters where you never see a team bounce back, right? Take a look at the Falcons. They let that huge, 24-point lead go, with Super Bowl hopes on the line. They've never recovered. They've been reeling ever since. So this is not a situation that I want us to be in. Nothing even close to it. Let me see what a couple of you guys are commenting here. We got an early heart. Appreciate you, Dakota. Luis. We're going to get slammed by Philly. I have a feeling it could look like that. And we'll break it down a little bit here, of course, too. I don't really do too many preview videos, but it'll definitely be worth talking about, to kind of build off of this conversation. Looks like you're concerned about Hurts running all over us. He seems to be like one of the more underrated dual threat quarterbacks. He has the ability. I don't think he uses it all the time, which I think is the right way for a mobile quarterback to extend their career. But he doesn't get talked about in the same veins of what you hear from like a Justin Fields, a Lamar Jackson. People probably place him closer to a Zach Wilson type. He can run, probably doesn't use it a whole lot, but he'd be a legitimate threat as opposed to, being somebody that's known for taking off. We got this. We'll be 3-3. That is the hope. Look, I kind of mentioned this very lightly in, one of my recent videos. Imagine a world where this Sunday we go and I want to say this is a home game for us. Let me double check that. Let's see. So the Jets will be, yes, this is a home game for us. We haven't done well at home, all of that aside. It's a home game. We're coming off a big victory against the Broncos, our third, the third quarterback that's one of the, top tier ones, regardless of how people feel about Russell Wilson last year. In this last decade, Russell Wilson's definitely a legitimate top 5 quarterback. We've made him look silly. Russell Wilson actually had a pretty efficient outing for the most part, if you take away, the fumbling. But nonetheless, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, they've all looked like very average quarterbacks against us. And so if we could do the same thing to Jalen Hurts, right? We were riding high coming off that Kansas City Chiefs loss. I don't partake in the moral victory stuff either. I think context to the situations are definitely very important. But I'm not a guy that's going to say, oh, we competed with them, I feel great. But imagine the Eagles come in our building, we walk away with the W, right? I don't want the feel good story. We hung with the, almost champs kind of thing. If we legitimately can beat the Eagles, it doesn't matter if we just barely eke out one. I don't care if we pull a Buffalo Bills, match up and, we end things on a return touchdown in overtime. We will be one of the most dangerous underdogs for the rest of this season. I mean, the way that our defense has bounced back, we're already should be a concern there, right? When you take a look at that secondary, it's hard to move the ball on us. You take a look at the front four and, you're getting attacked the entirety of the game. We finally got a preview versus the Broncos of what it looks like when the New York Jets have a lead. They can pin their ears back and they can let the dogs fly, right? And you can pull out pretty much any rotation you want. At that point, Al Woods is going to be riding the bench for the most part, and you're lining up a Bryce Huff, a Jermaine Johnson, a Quinnen Williams, and then maybe you're rolling with Solomon, maybe you're keeping Quentin Jefferson out. Doesn't matter, but it's a deadly situation for a team to be in. If we can find a way to go up early, things will go, things should fly in our favor pretty quickly, right? Do we have a 30% chance to beat Philly? Philly scares me quite a bit. I think this could be a lopsided game very quickly if our offense can't find a way to get ahead or keep up early. I would probably say, if I'm being realistic, I'm giving us like a 20% shot at probably being able to pull off a victory in this game. Dakota seems to see, definitely seems like we have a shot. I'm loving the optimism there. Jets beat Philly, the sky won't fall. It might as well, right? But I think, again, the Chiefs game is going to be something that you have to compare amongst all the other elite teams with how we played. Zach Wilson played out of his mind. If you're getting something closer to what we've seen like against Denver, it gets harder to think about probably beating them out. Keep in mind, the Eagles' defense is solid. Those boys are legit. The front seven is definitely the most dangerous part of that unit after they remade the secondary. And there are some vulnerabilities within that Eagles defense. But what scares me specifically is Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Those guys versus Tomlinson and McGovern for us. I'm not too worried about Tippmann. Probably won't have the strength to necessarily match up with either of those guys. They're both freaks of nature for their position. But he has the agility and the athletic mold to kind of overcome that. Tomlinson and McGovern, not so much. So I think it could be a long day where you're seeing Zach Wilson get flushed out of the pocket immediately. But that's really my biggest concern with that Eagles defense. Everything else, I think we can find a way to attack them. There's going to be mad Philly fans in that stadium. Yeah, they travel well. The Eagles fans, they travel well. And it's a tough game whenever we place them as well, because my grandfather he's a big Eagles fan, so they've always been my default secondary team. If the Jets are on a bye week or, we're out of the playoffs and I need a team to root for, it's the Eagles. So this is those, one time, I think it's every 4 years or so that we're seeing them where, it's no love lost. We made both week 1, Josh Allen, and week 4, Mahomes look silly, both on the ropes against our defense. Yeah, there was a lot of very uncharacteristic throws from them. And when you go back and take a look at it, you can't break it down any other way than saying they felt they needed to make a play against the defense. Because you're seeing with Josh Allen, you were seeing like back foot, lobs to the other side of the field. And then essentially the same thing with Patrick Mahomes. They tried to give us a lot of touch passes that they compete against a lot of other teams. But it's tough having Sauce Gardner and the length and, athletic traits that he has. And then with DJ Reed, generally the longer a play goes on, the stickier the coverage gets with him. You can kind of beat him early if you're, have a better physical build than him, taller, better arm length, stuff like that. You can get away with some early releases and stuff. But for the most part, it's tough. We deserve this big win Sunday. Yeah, I'm gonna lose my mind. If we can beat the Eagles, that would 100% be our statement game for the season. I can't wait to see a Jets flight. Why do I keep getting the name of the little docu-series wrong? Either way, though, I can't wait for it. Right? They do a great job of kind of clipping together the emotions and the preparation and everything that's gone into it. Jets will beat the E-Girls, Giants, Redskins in the NFC East. Dallas creamed us due to no blocking. Yeah, it was rough. And you'd have to imagine we're going to see some early struggles this game again, too, with AVT going out. I do have a pretty good amount of faith in Max Mitchell. But still, again, it's a remade line. He came in. He didn't look terrible last week. But it's pretty much the same thing you can say about last year. There's some obvious places you'd like to see some improvement. Strength is still going to be a concern as well. But the communication piece, we'll see how early Tippmann and Max Mitchell can click together. You have a 20-17 win for us or a 17-14. So a close game. Okay, so a lot of optimism, Dakota, but it's not like you're expecting us to blow them out the water. Respect. About a 40 to 45% chance of winning. Philly frauds, one all-time Super Bowl doesn't scare me one bit. There's something to say, though, for teams that have a winning pedigree. I know ultimately you need the ring to, kind of put the icing on the cake for everything. But having that winning culture and mentality where sometimes those guys just can't find all of the right talent pieces to plug in holes, it's still a huge thing to have on your side. I think after the bye, we'll win all of our games. That's tough. I think we have a bye week in about, week 8. So you're talking about like a 9-game win streak after the bye week. It's tough to pull off. I'm not saying it's impossible because I've seen the schedule and talked about it, maybe a month or so back now. It's definitely doable, but it's tough. Keep in mind, we got those Dolphins games. And I kind of mentioned it on a post I did today. The Eagles and the Dolphins really are the scariest teams left on this schedule, in my opinion. I don't consider the Jets even in the same class as either of these two teams. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how we match up and how competitive we ultimately end up being against them. Houston, ATL going to be tough games for sure. Week 18, we're if Bill Belichick is indeed retiring this season, I would love to send him on his way with an L. It's probably nobody else in the face of the football planet I hate more than that guy. Chargers won't be easy. True, they are dealing with a fair amount of injuries, though. Watch the Vegas game in Vegas. Isn't going to be easy for us as well. They're struggling quite a bit too, though. And there seems to be some internal struggles between the coaching staff and some of the players that they have right now. So do you think we'll get La'el Collins? Yes. I would probably say it's like a 55% confidence that I have that'll actually happen. Based on having him in for the workout, and I think he worked out for the Giants today. I don't think he did both in the same day. I would say the urgency probably isn't sky high, right? Like if we don't hear something by Friday, I would probably say we're not going to end up signing him, and the Jets are comfortable with what we have. Unless it just takes a while for us to iron out the contract details, which realistically it shouldn't, right? It's probably going to be a 2-year deal with the last one voided. And then he'll probably make something along the lines of what Morgan Moses or Dwayne Brown was making when they were asked to be starters instead of backups. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. If we don't hear anything by Friday, I'm going to assume that the New York Jets want to see what they have in house. Also, though, there's two options, and I just talked about one recently on the video I dropped, though. If we don't get Lyle Collins, I don't think it's the end of the world. I would still be a huge fan of getting DJ Fluker. And then I did talk about a great value option in that if everything else fails and you still feel like you need a piece to bring in, Joe Haig from the Cleveland Browns most recently will be a strong option, especially in terms of keeping the run game going. Philly should have about 4 to 5 Super Bowls right now. Honestly, Philly having one to me is crazy. Yeah, there's a number of teams like that. I mean, realistically, you could put the Jets in the same situation. Rex Ryan probably should have been able to get himself 2 rings. This roster that we have feels like it's definitely Super Bowl worthy. So you'd imagine if we had Aaron Rodgers still, this is a Super Bowl, season for us. Especially when the E-Girls once had the dream. Man, the Dream Team days were crazy. I remember the contract drama around Nnamdi Asomugha. And I remember wanting us to sign him so bad. And I don't remember if that's the season that we got Cromartie instead, or if we ended up drafting like Kyle Wilson or somebody like that. But yeah, it goes to say, though, right? Having top tier talent across the board doesn't automatically make you a winning piece. You still have to have the camaraderie and, the communication and the right coaching staff in place to make that magic happen. Even in other sports, right? When you think about like the NBA Olympic teams and stuff like that we have, technically NBA is probably the best league for basketball in the world. And we have some of the best players that you can assemble, and yet we, still see losses. So hopefully Philly doesn't have Breece Hall. True, they do have a DeAndre Swift that I do like quite a bit. Giants asked them to come in for a physical. From what I read up on Luis, it sounds like they are that they have a physical and they had a workout scheduled. Bryce Huff, JJ, and Quincy are about to have a big game Sunday. Yeah, Quincy's had he hasn't had a bad week so far to start off the season. I love that Bryce Huff is getting more play. It's something a lot of people have asked for. I bought into the whole, coaching staff doesn't want to entrust him in the run game situation. Still would have liked to see more snaps, but it made sense to me. But, you don't see a huge drop off in production in terms of rushing. We're always essentially going to be a team that's prone to giving up some solid or, above average rushing performances from opponents, just the way the mentality is and how the defense is taught. But yeah, we've done pretty good giving Bryce Huff more play and not having to worry about, 200 plus yard performances on the ground. Giants need anybody and just about everybody right now. Yeah, they're the last of my worries. This Eagles defense is rough. We need heavy motion on both run and pass. The motion is something that I've enjoyed the most about the offense so far. We've seen a few other coordinators try to use it, and whether it was lack of talent or, we just, I don't know, weren't coaching it right. We've had some strong offensive lines to make it work. And, of course, quarterback situations. But I would love to see us continue to build on it, right? Right now, a lot of what we're seeing is that Garrett Wilson will come from the basically the sideline. He's going to be lined up closest to the boundary. We'll see him run a motion. He'll come inside and he'll kind of run back out to the flat or maybe cut kind of like a go route for the most part. And then anything else is us kind of sending Gibson back and forth. And that usually ends up being a run play, whether that's to Gibson or us just trying to lighten up the box a little bit. Who's blocking Bryce, JJ, Quincy, and Quinnen? Yeah, it's tough. No offensive line in the league generally is going to stand a shot for the entire game against our defensive line. Crazy eating facts. Yeah, worst case scenario. I know a lot of people look at the sacks on a week in and week out basis too, but if you strip that away, the best defenses that we've seen in the last 10 years are strong pressure defenses, and we definitely bring the pressure every week. What do you think about Dennis Kelly? Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look into him. I seen the background was I think he has a connection to the Titans offensive coordinator and I guess our offensive line coach, Keith Carter, by default. The name rings a bell. I remember him being a pretty strong athlete, but other than that, nothing really stands out for me. I would assume this is a Keith Carter move. Somebody he's familiar with, thinks he can probably mold him up, but I'll have to actually check him out. Jets D versus Philly D. May the better defense win Sunday. Yeah, if it's defense against defense, I'm generally taking ours against anybody. But unfortunately, we also have the offense that we have to worry about. They have a much stronger unit than us. Is it possible we can lock Dalvin in his hotel room? Man, I wish. I don't wish sickness on anybody. But if he can find a way to take some time to recover, maybe for a couple weeks, go on IR for a non-football illness, injury concern, I think that would help us out. This is one of the things that does frustrate me the most about Robert Saleh and company. There's definitely a time and a place for sticking through some struggles with players, right? And Dalvin Cook has the pedigree that you can say that should be the case. But from what you see on tape, it just looks so bad. He looks slow, sluggish. I've used the word uninspired for a lot of our plays, when we've struggled in games, but he really does. He looks like he's just kind of going through the motions. You see him almost looking like he's ready to drop instantly whenever he even senses that, an arm tackle is coming his way. You don't see any power to break through tackles. You don't see any elusiveness. He's just kind of rushing and hoping he makes contact with a body and things get wrapped up. So the best thing that happened for this New York Jets offense is Breece Hall coming off that pitch count. But yeah, if I'm the Jets, I'm relegating him as a healthy scratch or I'm giving him the Michael Carter treatment, and you can get 1 or 2 plays every game and I'll bump up Michael Carter or I'll bump up Izzy and I'll give him those opportunities. Slowly develop him while still getting him some game experience. Yeah, he looks worse than James Robinson from last year, in my opinion. And at least he had more of a, legit concern, right, coming off that ACL early. If we can get a lead, we have a chance because when they put McDonald into a pass rush last week, it looked like Denver's O-line was trying to catch us. Yeah. 100%. One of the worst situations for you to be in looking at this Jets defense is to know that we have lockdown coverage on the back end and that you have some of these boys with elite traits from outside to inside that'll be coming after you because more than likely 70% of the time you're going to be trying to pass to get these chunk plays and get into the end zone a little bit quicker. Dalvin Cook to Dalvin Crook to Dalvin Schmuck. Love it. I also think they're sleeping on Izzy. Yeah, 100%. But I do realize the concerns, right? This seems to be something they care quite a bit about, right? The ability to run between the tackles. And it's not like it takes a special trait. Michael Carter does pretty effective running between tackles for a smaller guy. We had him as one of the most elusive running backs his rookie year. We've seen a huge drop off last year. But then, the limited amount of touches he's had in 2023 so far, he looks like that guy that can make the first and even the second guy miss the majority, if not all of the time once again. And we haven't really seen that from Izzy. He's kind of doing the Dalvin Cook situation where he's looking to hit a hole and just kind of barrel his way through. But if you give him those outside zone concepts, he's going to excel there. So there is something strong to work with. Where is Izzy? Still hurt? No. So from what I understand, the thigh contusion isn't really an issue no more. He's just been a healthy scratch because they have Dalvin Cook and they have Michael Carter ahead of him. Izzy is looking like Barkley right now. It's been hurt since Pampers preseason game. Yeah, no, I don't think that's the case. I haven't heard any confirmations and I haven't seen healthy scratch next to anything when I've seen him inactive. But it doesn't seem like that thigh contusion was all that serious. Jigga, my G. How you doing? We talked about Cook. He was always a running back that needed multiple touches to warm up, and now aging, he'd even need more reps. Unfortunate. Should let Izzy cook and see what he has. Yeah, 100%. Volume rushers are always tough to judge because you don't see, how can I put this? You don't see very efficient performances, right? They're not guys like David A-Chain we're seeing, or even Breece Hall, or even, a DeAndre Swift, for example, where you can say in 10 touches, they'll probably average, 4.5 yards at worst. At best, you're going to see, some crazy runs. You have guys more so like the Derrick Henrys of the world and the Dalvin Cooks, as he's mentioned, where they need those 15 touches to kind of start getting the defense wore down, kind of getting into a bit of a groove, and then being able to pick up steam. Inactive. Yeah, so I guess the official term for his injury was a thigh contusion. Do you think we'll trade for Jerry Jeudy? Nah, I don't see us trading for any wide receivers because we're already taking a look at letting go Mecole Hardman. Realistically, if anything, I think they trust the in-house options, right? I know a lot of us can't wait to see if a Jason Brownlee is ready. But you also have Irvin Charles, not as great of a receiver right now, maybe as a Jason Brownlee or even an Xavier Gibson. But he does have that great special teams ability. And he still is the guy that we all tabbed as probably being the most likely Denzel Mims replacement prior to seeing Jason Brownlee break out this offseason. So I trust a lot of the guys that we have on practice squad or that are healthy scratches right now, whether they need to trade for anybody. Boycott turned out to be a baby like we don't need Jerry. Would be nice though, but yeah, at this point, if we can't find room to hit the third and fourth guys on our depth chart consistently, it's a waste trying to sign anybody else. Jerry Jeudy's not a bad idea, but I wouldn't do much than a fourth. Yeah, I'm not giving up anything. If we're going to make a trade, it has to be for the offensive line. I don't think there's another position that I would recommend a trade for. Everything should be focused on that line at this point. Running back room for you, Dakota. Looks like it's Breece at the top. Izzy second. Yeah, for sure. I think that's the 9 out of 10 Jets fans should agree with this. I'd say 10 out of 10, but we got the guys out there in the world like Jets forever. Sign Jerry, then don't utilize him at all. That's what we'll 100%. It's so frustrating to see some of the talents that we have on this roster. And I don't think they want to outright say that it's because we have Zach Wilson and we need to focus them around a certain group of individuals, because I really think that's what the case is. Because you imagine Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have a stronger voice. He's going to have his opinions. And of course, we're just going to trust in what he's been able to do. He'll want to have guys like Mecole Hardman out there, right? If I'm a coaching staff, no coaching experience professionally, right, in terms of football, obviously. But it just makes sense to me. Have something like a speed package, right? You have Garrett Wilson just because he's your best wide receiver out there, and he's still no slouch in terms of, his speed. And then you have Xavier Gibson, you have Mecole Hardman, you have Jeremy Ruckert. That's your speed package. 3 wide receiver personnel with a tight end that can run, or he can go out there and get you a catch. He can run, he can catch, he can block. And then, of course, you have Breece in the backfield, or you have an Izzy. And then at that point, it's going to be hard for a team to stop any one of those guys, whether it's man coverage or it's zone coverage, because everybody's giving you a speed element. So unless they're just so physical that everybody's timing gets knocked off, you're going to have somebody open and you're going to be able to exploit a lot of yards after catch ability. If we sign Jerry, I'm afraid we will Hardman him. Yeah, 100%. Cobb is just there because of A-Rod. We need to give Hardman a chance. Facts. Unfortunately, I don't think he is. From what I heard from the press conferences, it does sound like Robert Saleh and his staff favors Xavier Gibson much more than Mecole Hardman, which I'm not mad at. But again, if you're going to toss the money out there for these free agents and then you can't figure out how to use them, you don't need nice toys. All right. You use somebody else's leftovers at a much cheaper rate. What do we do with quarterbacks and players in general is absolute. Yeah, facts. For anybody we pick up on defense, I get really excited about because we do find ways to use them. When it comes to the offense, I think Nathaniel Hack has done a great job, but it's crazy that like offensive coordinators just seem to forget that they have weapons that they can use. So I don't know. It's beyond me. We're cursed. Thank the Lord we have Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson in this defense. Facts. Yeah, even just having Breece and Garrett is more than a lot of teams have. A true number one wide receiver and a number one running back. Max Mitchell can hold his own. He's just no AVT. Yeah, last year was a solid baseline. I'd expect improvements. But I would say realistically, he's probably a middle of the pack tackle. And that's like best case scenario to a certain degree, right? I think he could be slightly above average and maybe he'll always end up being a better run blocker than maybe a pass protector. But I don't think we'll expect, greatness out of a guy like Max Mitchell. I just think he slightly overperforms where he was drafted and considering, his, what was it? I think he was coming out of the ACC or the Sun Belt Conference, something like that. Clemens is good, just won't ever be elite. Yeah, same territory. Hopefully McGovern could hold his own against Carter. Yeah, not a chance. I have no faith whatsoever in anybody that's more athletically gifted with any general sense of technique when it comes to rushing the passer. I don't give McGovern the edge ever. I think this is going to be a very rough day for us. And even if Jordan Davis ends up being the one he's lined up against a lot, they're just freaks of nature for their body size. Or what happened to Clemens? Maybe added weight screwed him. Yeah, so I talked about this towards the end of the preseason because we got a pretty good idea of what he looked like in this new role at that point. The idea was he was going to pack on weight, move inside. He was going to take on basically a John Franklin Myers role. But with him being bigger, you'd assume he'd be more athletic as a defensive tackle as opposed to a defensive edge. But what we didn't account for is obviously it's a new position. He's going to have to figure out how to fight in a phone booth instead of being able to go out there and win on the edge. And he matches up well with most tackles in the league, right? You're not going to have a huge weight difference for the most part. But once you move inside, he's even at 280 something. I think he's around 286. He's fighting guys that are starting off at like 315, 315 plus. So he's already at a huge difference in terms of the weight and strength. And then he's not a elite, technically refined pass rusher. So he was always going to struggle there. I was hoping he'd hold up a little bit better in the run game. We've seen him kind of take a step back there too. But it's a work in progress, right? He's not doing any worse than what we've seen from Solomon Thomas or some of the other defensive tackles that we used to have recently. Philly Bulldogs. Yeah, it's crazy how many Georgia players they got. Yeah, I'm expecting highlights galore from Carter and Davis abusing them. Do we really have a Super Bowl coming? I don't know when, but whenever, let's just say. Yeah, Philly could probably win this year. I think that's definitely a strong, realistic chance. I mean, you're talking about a couple bad plays last year from being a winner, right? Patrick Mahomes is a different kind of alien. But yeah, you're talking about literally one less mistake from the Eagles at any given point. And I think they only had maybe the 2 turnovers, but literally one less mistake. And we're talking about them being the Super Bowl winners last year. So, yeah. '49ers or Philly. Yeah, well, you guys heard it here already. Philly's my backup team. So if my Jets can't compete for a Super Bowl, I'm rocking with Philly on this one. Besides, the way they've been able to build out their teams is absolutely ridiculous. They're definitely the closest thing to like the Jets when it comes to just having talent on top of talent. Kind of going back into the original question and kind of topic here as well. Let me know what you guys think, because I'm curious. Did you consider the Broncos win more of an emotional win for Nathaniel Hackett and that coaching staff, or did that seem to be just a sign of progress being made within the offense? Because, again, I'll point out the Jets haven't done well after emotional wins, looking unprepared, overwhelmed very easily. I'd hope it'd be a different story here, but I personally will say I think the game definitely meant something, but I still think they did a great job of putting that on the back burner and that just being a game that we needed to win to stay in the playoff picture. How did Brock Purdy jump past Zach in same scheme immediately? It's not a tough question. It's not really that tough of a question whatsoever, right? Zach Wilson was a guy that 100% needed to sit in year one. There was a lot of things to love about him, but from a mental standpoint, the man wasn't a man. He was a boy. There's a lot of maturity, as we're seeing he looks like right now. There's a lot of maturity that needed to get done. And that's just as a person, let alone a football player. But one of the things I keep hearing get brought up that I think goes to the wayside a lot with us is that when he was at BYU, he legit had almost 5, 6, 7 seconds to toss that ball around, which is going to inflate anybody's stats and make them look elite. And then you're talking about jumping to the NFL, and let alone he didn't have great talent when he came in. You're talking about him having to make a ton of tight windows throws. He can't play backyard football. He has to play within a scheme. He doesn't really have, again, a lot of high-end talent to rely on. It was always going to be a recipe for disaster there. So, why they gave him the Bugatti right away, I never understand. But, hindsight's 2020. I don't think that Denver game is anything to be proud of. Should have blown that team out the water. Yeah, 100%. I was definitely focused on the fact that every team before us gave them the work. And it seemed like we just kind of skated by. I know for people that are on the scoreboard watching, it looks like we probably put the hurt on them 31-21. But I did expect a little bit more of a dominant game. Defensively, I think we kind of lived up to the billing to a certain degree. Russell Wilson was definitely very efficient, but he also couldn't just have his way moving up and down the field. That was a very weird game. A lot of that was, determined by what we have, 8 or 9 fumbles between both teams that entire game. But I expected more dominance. We didn't even need a Kansas City Chiefs version of Zach Wilson. There was definitely some shots there. And some opportunities to get a few more points up on the board from an offense, not the defense helping out or special teams. I think it's one of those things we'll have to deal with. We'll probably never see a true blowout from this team led by Zach Wilson until we do get those consistent, stronger performances. But we are a team that's showing that we can kind of put them away. We're cutting a lot closer to the end of the fourth quarter than I like. But we have so far kind of lived up to the billing of finish to a certain degree when we have the chance. San Francisco would cook us right now, 28-17. I would say that might actually be a pretty realistic score. I don't think any team will truly blow us out. That Cowboys game was kind of an anomaly. That one's going to sting for a long time. But outside of that, I don't think. I don't think you'll see another team go out there and really put up more than 30 points on us. Maybe 28-14. You're giving us 2. What about bringing Tanzel Smart from the practice squad to juice the D line? Rivera. So Tanzel Smart is a guy that I wish we would have made the 53-man roster. He's a guy that's very interesting and entertaining to me. being able to be effective against both the run and the pass. You don't have a guy that's next, like Solomon Thomas, he's kind of a dud in both categories, right? Quentin Williams obviously excels in both areas, but then you have Quentin Jefferson, more of a pass rusher, Al Woods, more of a run defender. Tanzel Smart is that perfect blend of both for you. And I do think he's a starting level talent. So, I don't know what the discussions around him looks like in that room. He's a guy that if we had the chance, an injury occurs to anybody in the interior, he's my first immediate thought. And to be honest, he's a guy that I wanted over Solomon Thomas anyways. Brock somehow right now would make our defense look mid like week 2 in Dallas. I just think it would be a frustrating game. Russell Wilson, he didn't put up elite numbers, right? But he definitely had a very efficient game against us. I think like maybe leading into the half, he was like 10 of 16. It was like 66 yards and maybe a touchdown or something like that. So like, again, you're not going to see crazy stats, I don't think. But you will be frustrated that maybe the Jets defense isn't making as many plays on the ball for a guy that knows how to find, any open spot in the defense. Rivera don't need him right now. Yeah, I'd argue against that. If I can find a way to get Tanzel Smart on this roster right now, I would do it. Hack has something to do with the win, but if it wasn't for Brees, we'll probably lose the game. Yeah, because outside of that 72-yard touchdown run in the third quarter, we didn't really do anything else, right? It's not like we've seen Zach Wilson come down and lead his team into the end zone again, like we've seen against the Chiefs. We would have struggled. And again, all of the fumbles really helped us out as well with some extra opportunities. I want to keep saying Weatherford, and that's not it. What the hell is our punter's name again? Morstead. Morstead's been a godsend for helping us out with field position. That's been a huge plus for us as well. Jake Asman, he stinks. Wait. Who are we talking about here? Is it Tanzel Smart? One positive is if Zach was a tad bit faster on the trigger, he'd have elite numbers. Very true. It sucks to have to talk about this way from a third-year player, but I'm happy that we're seeing the small things get done well, right? He has sped up his clock. He's averaging below 3 seconds now instead of almost 4. I think he's close to like the 2.7 range on average. You don't see him backpedaling. You don't see him taking, 20-yard sacks anymore, really. And you see the reads being done a lot quicker. So he's not trying to progress all the way from 1 through 5, which I think was a serious concern before. He's now just trying to pick where he wants to attack this defense, and he's letting it rip. Maybe adding more of Al Woods to the defensive plays will stop the run, Swift and Hurts. Probably. I know the biggest concern is that when you bring on Al Woods, it kind of immediately says that you're expecting a run play, just with what his skill set is. And so if it is a run, you're at an advantage, right? He's going to eat up 2 bodies just because of his size and strength. And then you get the one-on-one matchups and maybe a free man if you're doing a stunt or if you're bringing a blitzer. If not, then you're talking about realistically only having 3 guys that you expect to hit home while not having any extra people in coverage. So got some agreement with you, boycott. Jefferson, Al Woods would be a factor both Sunday. They are both monsters from the Seahawks. Yeah, I like them for what they were, especially because they were later signings in the offseason too. Quentin Jefferson probably can get close to hitting his career marks, if not bypassing those within this defensive line. Al Woods, I think, will end up being underappreciated all season. Zach Wilson stay. Yeah, I think most Jets creators I know are kind of done with him. You know, it was exciting to see what he did against the Chiefs, but I think most people consider him a busted product at this point. We need to implement more play action plays. Yeah, it sucked to see us getting away from that with the Broncos, or at least that's what it felt like. I think we caught the Chiefs off guard when we did opt to go into more pass sets earlier in the downs, and we have the playmakers to make it happen. So, like, you know, it's all a game of who can play situational football the best. If you see that maybe they're expecting something different and they're giving lighter boxes, then cool, let Brees Hall take advantage early and often. But if not, let those boys, Garrett, Lazard, let them go out there and eat. For the love of God, get Nicole Hartman out there. Yeah, it's crazy to think $4.5 million is just sitting out there on the bench chilling. When Jake went off on Zach after that Jags Thursday night game a season ago, terrible. It's funny because Jake Asman reminds me of just like a cartoon character to a certain degree. So like I can see him getting animated in my head. Cracked me up. Bros, living in Seattle, the Seahawks fans always let me have it when we lose. Yeah, I'm out here in Vegas, so the Raiders are crap out here, of course. But yeah, it's like teams love the dogpile on the Jets. I don't know what it is, but I'm hoping we can change the narrative pretty quickly, right? Aaron Rodgers was definitely supposed to help put that nail in the coffin this season. You know, hope it is what it is. I don't know. I think we'll find a way to turn it around. You can't be terrible for the majority of your you know, you can't be terrible for the majority of your lifespan as a NFL franchise. At least that's the hope. Dallas fans flood upstate New York. Yeah, we get a lot of Raiders fans. We get a lot of 49ers fans, of course, being close to Cali. And then oddly enough, we get a lot of, we have Vikings fans out here, at least from all, you know, the different jobs that I've been in over the last decade. Seems to be a ton of them creeping out here on the low. I appreciate you, man. It's super late out east. You're still giving good content. You're the best in the West. Hey, appreciate that, man. I'm glad a couple of y'all can come through. I know I have to run through these pretty late, but these don't work out so well if I do them earlier. My kids get very crazy. Got a lot of energy in them. So it is what it is. Wow, Wave, my man, I haven't seen you in a minute. What's the good word? The only thing that can change the narrative of the Jets is a Super Bowl. To be honest, I won't even say a Super Bowl. I think you need to seriously, if we were going to say the narrative would change, I think it would take a 2-year time frame. I think you would have to get a Super Bowl regardless of what the record is. For example, let's say we sneak into the playoffs at 9-8 and then we get a Super Bowl. Cool. But then I think you'd have to see like a double-digit win season with the playoff entrance the following year. Otherwise, we're just going to be looked at as like a 1-year wonder, and then teams will be, you know, we'll start getting the whole, you know, you're falling off to conversation pretty quick. Upstate. Yeah, facts. Syracuse, New York. Thought you guys were talking like maybe Buffalo-ish. Getting ready for 3-3. Yes, sir. Interesting. Okay. I haven't heard anybody else say that we match up well against them. DJ Reed and Devontae Smith will definitely be a very good one. I do get concerned about A.J. Brown's strength against Sauce Gardner. But the matchups are there for sure. The matchups are definitely there. No to Cousins. Yeah, I'm not looking for any quarterbacks at this point. I'm prepared to See, that's tough because I know I talked about Colin Kaepernick joining the practice squad and him moving up if we've seen Zach Wilson struggle. But like, I just kind of want to really be over and done with the whole Zach Wilson thing if we're not going to see legitimate progress as well. So like, I'm almost kind of prepared to let it ride out with Zach Wilson, and I just hope that maybe I don't love the idea that we'll have to start over completely again, and you know, tear down this team that we build, or tear down the entire coaching staff, and then we have to, you know, see Joe Douglas adjust to a new scheme and all the things they want to do from a personnel standpoint. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air these days for me, but yeah, I don't love the idea of Cousins coming through. DK, are you going to be at the Raiders game against the Jets? I am not sure. I know I talked about it. My boy Dark Soldier, I know he was trying to figure out if he was going to go or not. I have actually, I left Jersey pretty early in my lifetime. I've never actually been to a Jets game, so it's on my to-do list 100%. I would love to, you know, actually go to MetLife Stadium. But I think I might actually try to make an appearance. If I can't actually get into the game, maybe I'll join the tailgate and, you know, see who else ends up coming through. I know some of the content creators tend to go to, like, you know, all of the home games or all the away games. So it'll be nice to probably catch up with some people in person, although I am not really a social creature. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't like huge crowds. I don't like loud spaces. Even though I'm a football fan, I love playing football, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's definitely in the cards. If I do, I plan on, you know, making it a big thing. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Rucker defense. Yeah, that's pretty much the name of the game. On the defense, you can't really say there's a huge weak point. And then on the offense, that's really what it is. So those are three guys that'll make it tick. I would say add Tyler Conklin in there, though. I think he's definitely one of the more underrated pieces that doesn't get a ton of love. No to Kirk Thuggin when Rodgers is on his way back soon. Soon is a stretch, Dakota. Soon is a stretch. Best case scenario, he comes back maybe the week before playoffs and the wild card matchups. Maybe ends up being a week or two into when the wild card matchups are finished. Who knows? Definitely seems like he's way ahead of schedule, though, with whatever that new surgery was, the speed bridge he got. But yeah, even then, though, I think a lot of people are putting way too much faith in him coming back and there not being any kind of issues with anything, right? He'll still have to come right back in. We'll have to readjust the entire playbook, which probably won't be as much of a problem as I'm kind of pointing out. But yeah, there's going to be rust. There's going to be, you know, the mental piece of him worrying about if he gets hit again, if his leg gets stuck, gets stuck in an odd motion. It's going to be some things to be figuring out. The Eagles are going to stack the box and press man. Watch. I hope the Jets have a game plan for that. If anything, like realistically, I mentioned this before, the Chiefs are going to be what you compare any elite team to that the Jets have to face, but you have to kind of carry that same game plan over. If anything, their cornerbacks are really the weakest part of their defense. You might want to be better off going with somewhat of a pass-happy approach here, to a certain degree. Breece Hall definitely needs to be a part of the game plan here, but take advantage of these cornerbacks. Let Garrett Wilson get his one-on-one matchups. Split Tyler Conklin or Jeremy Ruckert out wide. Let them work the soft zones whenever those come up. Alan Lazard tends to find a way to make a big play on third downs. Like, I think there's definitely a opportunity for us to come away with a win here, but this isn't one where I think you can see like a comeback like you did with the Chiefs. I think we need to get up early and we need to stay ahead in order to walk away with the W. It's Kirk Thuggin since last season. Yeah, I love it. He's a funny dude because I see him like decked out in like the chains and all that kind of stuff. But then I seen something, I think it was the Quarterback Netflix series. And, the wife has him decked out in the Connor wardrobe. Zach has improved according to PFF in the last 2 games. If the defense can stop the run and start faster and play with a lead, we can play with anyone or to protect Zach or Gucci. I think that's the most optimistic approach to it for sure. I know the highlights for Zach Wilson so far. I forget how exactly it goes, but basically with the stats that have been getting pointed out is that, the last 25 games, I think Zach has had one performance where he's hit, the 70% completion mark. We've seen it in back-to-back games now. And then, of course, we're seeing the touchdowns to a certain degree come with it. And we're seeing the turnovers be a lot more, limited. So, yeah, we're capable of looking like we can win with this version of Zach Wilson. But it does take like a perfect execution of everything else. The defense has to be perfect. Special teams has to chip in. And whether that's just strictly field advantage the entire game or that's getting a touchdown out of them or turnovers on the return units or the coverage units, I should say. And then, of course, big plays from Breece Hall. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely doable. Just the O-line versus their D-line. They have a clear advantage, might need some tight end help. Yeah. We seem reluctant to really want to get the tight ends involved heavily in pass blocking, which I don't know why. The selling point for a lot of these guys with that, they can do everything pretty well. And we're not really utilizing them a ton when it comes to like the tight ends being the X factor in matchups when it comes to giving Zach Wilson a bailout option. So hopefully we continue to see corrections, right? At least we're seeing progress in terms of the play calling, how we want to attack and scheme against these defenses. And so, yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel at least. Did we face the Eagles during preseason or was that last preseason? Either way, we got cooked, even though it was just preseason. We played the Browns, the Giants. Let me look it up here real quick. I want to say that was last season. Yeah, we had the Browns, Panthers, Bucks, and the Giants. Jeremy Rucker. Yeah, he's going to be a story that we all can love. Hold on. Yeah, yeah. My bad, y'all. As y'all could probably see, the puppy that's in the background, he loves trying to sneak into my son's chair and get whatever scraps he can. The Eagles not hitting the same like they did last year. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're as much of a consistent big play threat and all of that, but they're dangerous nonetheless. What's a fall off from looking like the number 1 offense to like the number 3, right? Like they're still elite for the most part, and they do have that unstoppable tush-push play. Teams are able to compete with them. For sure, I do know, for what it's worth, let me find out who it was. I know they had a huge game that they struggled against. Eagles had that game against the Patriots where they looked like they were struggling. And then, of course, the Commanders that took them into overtime. So they're not invincible, for sure. I think Rodgers is saying not to trade for cut. Yeah, hell no. I think Aaron Rodgers will freak out whether we traded for a quarterback this year or if we drafted one high, wherever we end up ultimately picking, if it is a high draft pick next year. Like, I think he just wants to settle in, get his starts in, hopefully get a Super Bowl, train up Zach Wilson, and whether he works out when he leaves or not, it is what it is. But I don't think he wants to walk into any kind of volatile situation at this point. fully right about Philly. They're not hitting like, yeah. It's interesting, too, because they do have a lot of strong pieces. Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift. Did I say Devontae Smith? Yeah, whatever. You guys know what I mean. But, yeah, they do have strong weapons, right? Legitimately 2 number 1 wide receivers. You have a strong tight end, definitely one of the better ones in the league. An offensive line that's excellent. And then you have, arguably a number 1 running back in the league. So you think they wouldn't struggle as much as kind of what we've seen. We can't come out slow and definitely can't go 0-5 in the red zone again. Yeah, the red zone struggles are ridiculous. Like, when we arguably look worse than teams like the Patriots and the Commanders and like the Cardinals when it comes to offense, like with the weapons that we have, regardless of the quarterback, you would expect that we would be able to do better than. I think we're converting, what is it, like 30% or less of our red zone trips into points. Why can't we use Hardman for motions and some slot reps? Just put him out there. His speed alone can make any defense nervous. Yeah, I think when we brought him in, and I want to say that was the Chiefs game. It might have been the week before. But I know we brought him in and he had like somewhere between like 6 and 11 snaps. And we did put him out there in a position to threaten the field, but he ended up getting the Elijah Moore treatment, and he just ended up being more of a decoy, drag a safety out for you. Let's open up some stuff underneath. My bad. If I said Redskins, it takes a while to get used to them. Commanders. T. Rivera not good enough for this team, for sure. Yeah, I am curious with the new ownership if they're going to take a look at switching things up again. I know it was a huge process just for them to get switched to the Commanders, but I don't know. What do you expect? It's a politician state. There was always going to be a ton of drama with what they had. Man, y'all are killing me. Commandos, the Deadskins, I'm sick. Let's see. It's not even hacky. Guys are open like Zach made you read, kids. I'm not going to ask too much. At this point, having high expectations for Zach Wilson is only going to get you depressed and turn into an alcoholic. So I would take the progress I'm getting, which is him at least just making plays on the reads that he does see. Even the Chiefs game, right? It was very efficient, very effective, but it wasn't top. It wasn't, how do I put this? It was definitely great quarterback play, but I want to say it was top elite quarterback play where you're seeing him manipulate defenses. He's hitting all of the big play opportunities that he has. Again, maybe it looks better if Tyler Conklin makes the play that he should have in the end zone, or if Garrett Wilson can, stretch that arm just a little bit further and pull in the touchdown. But, red zone is our weakness for sure. Football team sounded ridiculous in 1920s. Yeah, a lot of what they got going on just sounds like any of those default teams from like the late 90s Madden football games where you wanted to create your own team. And they have some of those default options on there when you go to relocate. We also need to make more in-game adjustments before halftime. Yeah. When the halftime performances for the offense and the defense look much better than the first half for sure. So I am happy that we're at least seeing things change up in the second half, but we do need to make that consistent all throughout. Zach drives me to drink. I'm telling you, bro, you gotta lower those expectations, my man, or we're all gonna be in the AA meeting together. At least he's improving. Yeah. Remember, it was only last year where my man couldn't even hit the line of scrimmage or anything before it. Hoping Darius Slay doesn't play on Sunday. Yeah, I got to take a look at what's been happening with the injury report and all that. I think I will try to drop a preview video for it, maybe Friday. But I can't guarantee anything. Zach drives me to smoke my loud more than usual. Hey, it's a healthier option to drinking. Darius, yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. Slay didn't practice today. Let's see real quick. All right, so injury report. Justin Evans, the safety, didn't practice. Darius Slay didn't practice. Both had knee injuries. They have a DT who did not practice, and then Sidney Brown didn't practice. That was the safety that I liked from this draft class, if I remember correctly. Fletcher Cox was limited. Nakobe Dean, the linebacker, was limited. Jack Stoll, tight end, and Rashad Penny Jack Stoll, the tight end, was limited. Rashad Penny was a full participant. So, yeah, they actually have a few different names out there on that injury list that can sway things in our favor. If Zach was Zach from last season, we'd be 0-5 to 1-4 right now. Yeah. I've said this before. There hasn't really been a game that we've won because of Zach Wilson before. A lot of what we've seen is him kind of doing the bare minimum to allow either the run game and or the defense to make up for anything else we couldn't do. Truth be told, we did. Yeah. I don't shy away from that whatsoever. Again, huge mistake playing him to begin with in year one, unless they absolutely had to. But then Mike LaFleur just seemed very uninterested, or he didn't know what to do with a guy like Zach Wilson when things didn't go his way, right? You have Rob Calabrese, quarterback coach who's new at his job. Once Greg Knapp went down, it was set up to be a disaster, from the jump. Zach was not like this when he came to us. I do wish him well. Yeah, anybody that's still currently in a Jets uniform, I don't wish bad things on them. But if you aren't good, you might as well give somebody else a shot, which is why I wouldn't have minded seeing Trevor Siemian or Tim Boyle at one point prior to that Chiefs game. Against the Birds, we need a lot of quick slam motion play action and running plays combined to keep the Birds guessing. Yeah, I think you want to get away from having Zach Wilson hold on to that ball for too long, which means you don't want long developing plays. And you have the guys that can go out there and rack up some yards after the play. Or after the catch, I should say. So, yeah, I mean, realistically, that'd be the perfect, opportunities to get a lot of these guys going early, too. And once you kind of get them on their heels and you can get that breathing room, then you can, take a few more of those shots. I won't say Mike LaFleur was the full problem. Kind of broken this down before, too. Because, again, people want to celebrate Mike White as the next coming of, Joe Namath for a portion of time there. Any other quarterback looked good in this system. Zach Wilson just, he couldn't hit water on an island. So what are you going to do, right? And if you don't have an expertise in developing quarterbacks, then it really is a waste. I appreciate you guys coming through again. I'm going to be on here for a couple more minutes and I'm going to wrap up so I can get in here with the little ones and get this house wrapped up. We need all hands on deck in our secondary. Yeah, if we don't have DJ Reed this week, I think that's going to be a huge miss. Eccles would probably be great. I would probably trust the job that Bryce Hall did from last week. If it came down to it, but DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner is always going to be my preference, especially against a matchup like this, right? It's easy for those wide receivers to make things happen at the drop of a dime. So if nothing else, I just really hope that we can finally see more man coverage than anything else with Sauce Gardner, considering the matchups that we're drawing this week. Jets secondary, so yeah. Imagine what Chuck Clark would have looked like. I'm not mad though, because man, I can't wait for Tony Adams to finally have a ball out game. But yeah, Chuck Clark would have been huge. And I know a lot of people were he was going to replace Jordan Whitehead in terms of being the strong safety. And, after his 3 interception game to start the season, I think a lot of people assumed he was going to be like a lockdown coverage guy for us now. But yeah, Chuck Clark, he's probably up there with Quincy Williams as like MVP of the defense, I would imagine, if he was able to play. Adrian Amos needs to wake up. Yeah. Whitehead's having a season for himself. He's balling out there. I hope we run Dalvin Cook into the ground. We have to get some things you just know and feel when they aren't right and they don't look good. Dalvin Cook is one of those. Give that man the bench treatment. Let him grab some splinters and get some of these young boys the ball. It's a young man's game in the running back room. The thing that makes me mad about Whitehead is the coverage lapses. Like when I called this out, when you take a look at like the Adam Troutman one, and we've seen this in last year with Sauce Gardner too. He seems to always miscommunicate if he's grabbing the player going to the flat or if he's taking the guy that's going into the end zone. Well, they're both doing that, but basically in or out, and he seems to always mix it up. And they exchange words real quick, so I'm not sure what exactly the problem is there. They blamed it on overcomplicated, language and all that stuff last year. But second year in, doing it with a high-level player like Sauce Gardner to, the left of you, that should be a thing of, the distant past. Ash Davis has been heavily underrated since he's been with us. Always been a fan of Ashton Davis when many don't like him. He's okay to me. I don't think he's above average. I don't think he's absolutely terrible. I do think he also gets a lot of help, though, from that, one in a blue moon play where things actually click for him and he makes a good interception. Otherwise, the other 3 or 4 he's had so far, it's kind of been bad quarterback plays more than anything else. So I can still respect him making the play on the ball. But he hasn't done anything that's really overly impressed me for, the athletic traits that he has. No way you're going to make $8 million and do nothing. Hey, look, when you're being a detriment to the team, it is what it is. Like, you can't tell me you would continue to, troll out Laken Tomlinson knowing what you would have known, with what we've seen now. I would put him on the bench and I'd try somebody else as well. Like, it is what it is. You shouldn't have made a terrible signing. It looks like Eccles will not play. Yeah, it'll be a tough blow, but, I think we've seen the Bryce Hall from when he was a starter. So I'm comfortable. MC2 needs to wake up a tad too. He doesn't get enough credit. If there's anybody that I'm going to say is the most underrated player on the defense, it's going to be Michael Carter. He doesn't give anything close to the love he needs to get. And he looks statistically like one of the most elite slot cornerbacks out there. If the defense didn't get a penalty every time that he was able to go out there and force a turnover, the guy's clutch. I won't hear any Michael Carter II slander in here. We'll give him a wish. I love it. Yes, sir. Almost Friday. I'm gonna pay for this tomorrow at work. But who else am I gonna talk about Jets with on the West Coast? Appreciate you coming through, Louise. Be easy. Sauce could have had 3 interceptions by now. He's due for 1. Yeah, the man kind of has those C.J. Mosley butterfingers, though. I think he's more concerned about it's almost like Bryce Hall, right? Great coverage player and stuff. And I don't want to put those two in the same category. There's obviously a huge difference in the talent level, objectively speaking. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like he'd rather go with the safety of a play not being made rather than kind of turning into a ball hawk. So some guys got it, some guys don't. He definitely has had plays where he could have been able to rack up some INTs, but I'm not going to fault him for it. Dude's still elite. You can't always get the full package and everything. We definitely need to spy on Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I think seeing what we did with Bryce Huff against Russell Wilson is probably going to be the smart way to go. So I should have picked off Russell Wilson right at the end of the game. Yeah. Yeah, but they teach that in the end zone. On those Hail Marys, they teach you to bat it down instead of trying to go for the pick and it falls, softly to the ground and somebody scoops in for, some kind of weird catch. Quincy will be spying on her. Yeah. Even if they want to get tricky, if they're running more 3-combo safety packages, they want to spy Tony Adams on them as one of our next best athletes that can make plays in space. Yeah, I think he prefers batting it down just to guarantee the win, but he needs to stop. Sound like y'all got some fantasy bets on turnovers for him. CJ is Hall of Fame caliber. Don't forget. Hey, it's no knock, but my man, he could have changed the course of quite a few different games if he wipes them hands off, gets his form down, and gets some of them turnovers for us. We should try to use Huff or Quincy like Parson and move them all over the line to create pressure packages for the D. Yeah, there's the reason that we brought so much versatility, right? Guys that can play inside or out or on either side of the line of scrimmage, for sure. Seems like, again, one of those things we may be a little bit reluctant to do. We rather just know that the rush is coming and it's your job to stop it, right? We don't really try to get too fancy with running stunts or anything like that. Next year, cut Lakin, stick AVT to guard. It sounds great on paper, but we can't seem to keep a tackle to save our lives. So, at this point, I would say just make AVT one of your permanent tackles and move him at guard when you need to, just because he's solid when he's there, and it's probably less likely he gets injured on freak plays. But yeah, we'll see. TJ Reed is back. Something is going to happen to Hurts. I do know that something. Yeah. Quincy Williams right now is a top 8 to 10 linebacker. That's probably cutting it lightly. I'd say he's definitely no worse than 5th. He's our Matt Milano. For sure. The best version of him definitely looks like Luke Kuechly, in my opinion. The floor for him, though, is probably like what is old boy from it's a Steelers linebacker. I can't remember his name. No fantasy bets. We just need to have a reason to talk down to them. Respect. Thoughts on the Giants imploding, D? Love it. I don't have as much of a rivalry with them as a lot of the other Jets fans. But with that said, the history of them acting like douchebags is definitely there. I'm not huge when it comes to trash talking. Never have been. Not when I played. Not when I'm necessarily watching it. Just, let your W's and the points on the scoreboard do the talking for you. I only get joy out of it when somebody comes to attack my team, because I can hit you with facts, proof, and objective, truths all day long. Outside of that, I leave those up to the, Twitter fingers out there in the world. Jets defense are all over the Giants October 29th. Yeah. I will say, though, I do love the joy of seeing that they paid $40 million for Daniel Jones, and he's looking worse than Zach Wilson. So there's that. Imagine if we took Kayvon at 4. Yeah, that's kind of mind-boggling now, isn't it? I remember it was so important at the time, but you won't find a single person that regrets that move right now, especially because I don't know what the stats look like, but I'm willing to bet you between what we're seeing this season, people would argue Jermaine Johnson was the better pick. Jets 35, Giants 10, October 29th. Yeah, I love it. The Giants are in a rough situation because they don't have an elite quarterback, and they also are dealing with a ton of lack of talent across the board on offense. So it's really like, who can you get the ball to that's not named Darren Waller consistently? Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Call it a night so I can try to get some shut-eye. But appreciate you guys coming through. You may have convinced me to go ahead and lock up a preview video to drop for the Eagles Friday. Hopefully we're not crying during Jets Therapy next week talking about this Eagles matchup, and we'll have some things to celebrate. But I appreciate you guys once again, and I'll catch you again. Y'all have a good night.